Hey, what's up, builders? It's your girl, Kantoinette the blogger, and you are now listening to the LPF podcast. I got a treat for y'all today. It came to my attention that these last couple of episodes have kind of been feeding into each other, and it just so happened that I got presented with the opportunity to have someone on for the Accountability is My Friend series. And this is going to be the first episode of this series. This is a dash of discernment, and we're going to be having this discussion with the returning artist from his original creating space, Mr. Nate Jolley. Go ahead and say something for the builders.
Peace builders, Nate Jolley, POE the gang, all that fun stuff. Just, happy to be on the platform. I literally have these type of conversations all the time. And every time I see the content, I'm like, damn, that hit. I gotta, hold up. Let me check myself at the door. So it's definitely great to have this discussion with you guys.
Thank you. You definitely put me on a different, I was already on this path to have this discussion, but I kept pushing it back. So when you hit me up and you were like, accountability, I was just like, no, you said discernment. And I was like, well, I'm already having a discussion of accountability. And I just felt like it would fit so well into this particular discussion. So I just want to start off with defining accountability, and then we're going to jump right into this. So accountability is the fact or condition of being accountable or responsibility. Responsibility.
Yeah, you said the magic words. Essentially, even when you break it down, responsibility. How do you respond to certain situations? How do you respond? On one of my old albums, I had a song called Crown where I was like, how do you act when the blame is on you? And when all eyes on you, when the weight of a situation or a decision is left in your hands, or when there's no one else there to take your blame, how do you respond? How do you react? And I think a lot of people start to
fold
like napkins. Okay. Fold like napkins. And it's understandable because we live in this society. Yeah, because you got to realize, like, it's a conditioning. Like, we're not naturally supposed to be capitalistic or all these other quote unquote negative attributes. These things are learned. Like, we come into this world. What did the Bible says? We come into the world without sin. But the reality is, like, we're coming into this world. Oh, dang it. Now I got to plug in my computer and stuff.
It's okay. We'll cut this part out. We'll remember coming to this world and pick back up there.
Yeah.
I could cut it out, the audio, though, but they're going to see all this fumbling on the video.
Man, you know what? They're going to see it all, bro. That's fine. It makes it more dynamic. It makes it more dynamic.
It makes it more honest. Okay, y'all, exactly. We are just two people having a conversation.
Literally. Like,
on the mic. All right. And you were saying that we come into this world and we kind of learn these, we are conditioned to learn negative aspects of, different things that we do. So lack of accountability being one of them.
Yeah, I think so.
Now
there is, I don't think there's a positive and negative when it comes to the learning. I think that we have to learn both sides of the coin. Like, we learn to do these bad things because of the immediate benefit. Right. But we also learn these good things based on, how our parental figures act and so on. Like me, there's points where I naturally hold myself accountable just because, like, I got taught to not lie. Like, I would tell, like, kind of like a half true type almost, but or omit things, but I would never outright like just lie.
Just lie. Yeah, that's me.
I can't do it.
I'm bad at it.
It's not in my DNA.
And I'm bad at it. So it's just like, let me not even, try. I think the one interesting thing that you just spoke on was learning the two different sides of the coin. So when accountability is useful and when it's not. And I think that speaks to the part of discernment with understanding when you're supposed to hold yourself accountable and when you're not supposed to hold yourself accountable. Because if you're not clear in you know, and in aspects about who you are, people will try to make you hold yourself accountable for things that aren't your responsibility or aren't, you know, yours to take ownership of. So with that being said, I want to ask, like, how does accountability fit into our life experience? How does accountability fit into our relationships?
I think when it comes to relationships, I think that there's two things, and this will expand probably as we continue to have the conversation, but the two things that you should always be accountable for is your actions and to an extent your decisions, like the consequences of your decisions. So for example, if you and your partner are going out and like you only got a certain amount of gas in your car and you know that, but your partner doesn't, then you're accountable for y'all breaking down on the road because you made the decision to not go get gas.
Oh, you know what? I love that example because people don't realize it's that stuff in a relationship.
It's the little, it's
like, yo, you didn't think to be responsible on this level to make our life experience together more comfortable. Like you didn't think to check and to be responsible for yourself, not just me, but to make your life easier. You didn't think to put the gas in the car or to take the trash out. You didn't think to do all this
exactly
stuff.
And it'd be the smallest decisions that have rollover consequences that we don't necessarily realize. And then of course being accountable for your actions. Now you can kind of sort of throw how people feel into that talk, because yes, if you're being what's the word, if you're not if you're not being considerate, right? Like it'd be weird if I just come on here loud blasting music, like that's not considerate to the platform, right? So quiet space and so on. And you made that very, very adamant in the email. Okay.
Did I make it?
Nah.
Look, I try to just be clear with my intentions, which is a part of being accountable too. I can't expect for you to show up in a certain way if I'm not holding myself accountable for communicating exactly what my expectations are. Exactly. So even with something like this, I've learned through my experience, like, okay, be clear and intentional, because some people, this would be their first experience on this kind of thing.
I literally made a blog post today about being like intentionality. Like you can't do anything haphazardly. Because ultimately you're going to my shamanism teacher said, right thought, right intention, right action.
Oh, so I like that.
You can have the right action, but if your intent isn't there, then it's just going to fall apart. See capitalism. You can have the right intention, but if you don't take any actions towards the intention, or you take the wrong action, then you're going to have to face the consequences of that action. You can have the right intent and the right action, but if you're not cultivating the healthy thought patterns for doing the action, then you kind of defeat the purpose of even doing it. Like
I think especially when it comes to intentionality and what people intend, it's like they intend with the purpose of getting specific results, not realizing that even though their intentions might be there, maybe they faltered somewhere in their actions or their thoughts, right? And then the end result changed because of those dynamics. And then they still don't want to hold themselves accountable because, the intention was there. I intended something different.
My intention was this, but your action said this.
Right.
So, and it's important,
or the impact was different. Like your intentions might have been clear or not clear, but your intentions might have been pure, or it might have been on par for whatever the situation or issue was. However, the impact was different, and that is what you're supposed to take accountability for.
Like you do, there is a certain, you're not, the responsibility of how someone feels isn't on you, but it is your job to hold yourself accountable for what, I guess, the possibilities of how you make someone feel, if that makes sense.
Because
Like,
we're
I'm not gonna run
influenced.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because even as artists, right, or as creators in general, although we want to just put out any kind of art however we want to and say what we want to say because that's the nature of the platform, we have to consider, like, if I'm talented at what I do and I'm just saying things haphazardly, like, am I looking at the impact of those words?
Right.
And yeah, like I try to impress that in my music, like, and
Oh,
I've even
definitely
tried,
hear it in the music.
yeah, and shifted the direction a little bit. Well, not shifted, but became more grounded in the direction of, guys, this is not just, this is something that can create a life for you.
Mm-hmm.
So be more intentional. Like, are you just rapping, or are you putting a specific purpose behind your music?
Right.
And I think artists tend to not be intentional because they're copying what is popular or whatever. But
that's people in general, if we're
yeah,
being honest. And that's why I say, like, we have to understand that we are influencers to each other and that we are influenced as well. So while it's just like the conversation of your partner's happiness is not your responsibility, I do believe that. However, I do think the maintenance is, because you can influence that person to either be able to live fully and vibrantly in happiness, or you can influence based on your actions and the connection they have with you. You might be taking something away from that happiness that they cultivated or had before they got to you. So it is your job to maintain it and to notice when they're struggling with it. But that's with anything. And I think when we're talking about being accountable, we have to realize that we are influencers. So no, someone else's feelings might not be your total responsibility, but if you do something and it influences someone to feel in a negative way, take ownership of that. That's a direct relation to your action, to your behavior.
exactly.
And you can't just like throwing a rock and then hide in your hand. You can't just walk away and be like, oh, well, however you take it
Well,
is however you take
it
it.
happens.
Yeah,
Nah,
like,
fam.
no, that's not how healthy connection works. And accountability is one of those things where I feel like a lot of us struggle with it. And we were kind of touching on that before. Why do you think that is?
um, I think that we struggle with accountability because it's almost like we forego the consequences. Like, people don't think about and I know you listen to the project. So the first track, KRS-One says, if more people took responsibility for the outcome of their actions, along with the causes, the world would be a safer, better place. Pardon my French, but niggas don't want to be like, niggas don't want to face the consequences of what they do. Like,
they want the rewards, but if
they want all the they want all the they want the the victory. Like, but you have to do XYZ to do that, right? You gotta focus and discipline and all of this other stuff, and you want XYZ like that? No, sir. You think even when developing yourself spiritually, like, me and my friend talked about this, where like people like hop in and oh my gosh, I'm doing the shadow work, and then just leave it alone and go back to their regular life. Like, nah, like, it has to be a lifestyle change. You have to be disciplined in order to see the benefits of you having healthier thought patterns. You have to like working on yourself every day instead of just once out of the week. And
committed to it.
Yeah, you got to commit yourself. So that really is why people don't want to be held accountable, because they're afraid of the consequences. And
they don't want to commit themselves to that kind of growth either. I think when we talk about accountability, it's not something that goes away. It's something that you cultivate and that you continuously nurture as you mature, as you build that emotional intelligence. Usually, especially if you're talking about like your spiritual journey, that's your spirit is going to be so convicted that you ain't got no choice sometimes but to hold yourself accountable, right? But people sometimes I don't feel like they want to commit to that level of doing the work, because at first it is hard. And that was one of the things we said before we start recording. It is hard work. And you said it doesn't have to be hard. And I thought about it and I was like, well, now I feel like holding myself accountable isn't so hard now that I've been doing it. It's like a emotional muscle that I've been working, and that I'm getting stronger with. So it's just like, it doesn't hit me as hard when someone tells me I did something wrong as it would have when I was in my earlier 20s and someone said I did something wrong. Because I know that, well, if I did something that affected you negatively, or I did something that affected a situation or impacted a situation in a way that I didn't intend, I can stand in that and know that it doesn't diminish who I am as a person. I can both be wrong and still be valuable. So that means I can take that accountability and keep moving forward. But a lot of people, they put their worth and they wrap it up in all these different things so that when someone comes and say, hey, what you did, I didn't like, or you did something wrong, it hits their ego.
And they're like, ouch, my self-esteem. I'm like, brother, it doesn't even hurt your self-esteem. Like my thing is like, man, you hit on several things where it's like people. So I'll start it with this. One of the biggest thing about what people like to call shadow work online is looking at the parts you choose not to look at. Like the biggest part of shadow work is being accountable for like things that you chose to hide or repress.
Those blind spots.
You can't repress your mistakes. If you repress your mistakes, they're going to haunt you for the rest of your life. So you literally have to. There was one tweet where I was like, own your shit, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, own it, own up to it, because people can't use you against you if you've allowed yourself to be honest with yourself.
Oh, I love that. Yes. They can't throw your dirt back in your face if you already was like, well, it's mine, I cleaned it.
Yeah, I'm like, yo, I understand I did. Yeah. Now, like the next conversation is, what are you doing to correct it? But
yes,
yeah, like if you can at least start that initial, get that initial work going as far as like owning up to your mistakes and not trying to like hide behind your ego, because like, well, I ain't gonna worry about it because no.
But it happens in it, and I realize, because we have this thing where, even though we're maturing, if those around us aren't, we start feeling a way, right? So it's like, dang, it ain't that hard, like take accountability. But for some people, it's not even a conscious thing that they don't do it. So that ego gets hit. And every time that ego gets hit in that way, that armor, that wall comes in to protect them, right? So they can hide behind that and say, you know what? I'm not even going to actually even deal with the situation. I'm not even going to look at it because I'm not going to sit here and feel attacked. And they can walk away without that accountability, even though you know that you were right in presenting whatever information, whatever facts you have about it. And you, like we were talking about last week about hard conversations, you can't make somebody have a hard conversation with you, and you can't make somebody be accountable, even if they should hold themselves accountable for some stuff.
Why are you not looking at yourself for this? And they just like, oh, well, and income excuses aplenty, and you just like, well, all right, bro. that's fine.
Or like that if you're doing the shadow work you're supposed to be doing, your spirit will be convicted enough to show you how you're going wrong with handling a situation like that. Because I was bad at that, was like, well, I can't believe this person did this and da 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 and da da da. And then those voices that I've cultivated over time, like, well,
you shouldn't have let him do this.
This is where you kind of created the situation for it to play out the way it did. And this is what you should hold yourself accountable for. And this is also where you should not falter on holding yourself accountable for. This is not some of this is not your responsibility, but the things that are, understand that they helped some of these situations to play out the way that they did. In that moment, I was extremely uncomfortable. And so I understand why people run away from that
they'd be like,
feeling.
oh my God. And it's only like hard the first time you do it because you're like, sting my ego. And then you realize like you gain more like worth and power because you're like, yeah, I'm ready to, I'm cool. Like this ain't gonna make or break me because this mistake isn't who I am. It's just a faltering judgment. So now I'm like, okay, I can handle that. I understand what I did. I'm owning up to it. And now I know what to do next time.
Right. I'm a segue real quick.
Yeah.
But before I do, I wanted to say, and this is gonna be real as shit, But I was talking to my best friend the other day, and I told her, I was like, yeah, I come to the realization I've never really been loved, romantically. I was like, and at first when I had that realization, it was a hard hit. Like it was like, God,
love me.
Because the thing about my life right now is I have a really long commute to school. So I drive like an hour and a half to school every day. And so on those drives, my mind does what minds do. And they just kind of work out different things that I would rather not be thinking about. But that was one of the topics that hit.
That's why you have to take that long drive. So you gotta
exactly, everything is intentional. But when it hit, it was just like, oh my God, because I had been sitting there the whole time. I was like, oh my God, I don't know why people don't want to hold this so accountable. I can't believe they did me like this and blah, 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 blah. And it was just like, well, the issue isn't that they did you like this. The issue is that you're thinking like, how could someone love me and do me like this? But if you look at the situation, do you really feel like any of these situations were loving situations? And it was like, they had loving aspects. But when I came to that realization, it was hard. It was a hard hit. And then it was freeing because I freed my mental space from thinking that I needed to be responsible to help hold other people accountable for the ways they didn't show up or the ways that I allowed them to show up. Right. So holding everybody accountable in that moment, including myself, and was like, okay, well, now I can move forward. Now I don't have to keep asking these same questions because now I have a legit answer that makes the most sense.
And like life is a reflection of you.
Yes.
Like that, and that ultimately is where accountability kind of gets its strength from. Because if you're able to like, whenever I deal with people, I look at one, okay, how does this make me feel? Then I'm like, okay, what are they doing? What is it showing me about myself? And then I'm like, okay, if I'm good, then we look at, then we turn the glass the other way. I'm like, all right, sir, I see you doing X, Y, Z, boom, 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 boom.
But you look at yourself first.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at myself first. I'm looking like, all right, what did I do to bring this? How did I even like? But that again comes with time, practice, always being self-reflective. Oh, like I ask myself the hard questions very early. So
me too. But I think about that and I don't know if that's just a personality trait though, because I've always been introspective, like I've always kind of looked at myself first. And it was something I had to learn balance with because sometimes you don't need to be so overly critical of yourself, right? You have to learn that balance. But I think that makes it easier for people like us who are introspective to take accountability. I don't know if that's something that a lot of people have. And if that's just a privilege that we have just based on our personality traits, as well as a skill that we learn too. Like, like that conversation, like talent versus skill, like we might have already had the talent for doing it. And now we're learning the skill to actually cultivate it and get better at it. But some people don't have that natural talent to do that work. So how do we have those discussions with those people?
I think learning our process is important. I think one of the best things we can do for someone that may not necessarily be ready to hold themselves accountable would be to talk to them and say, hey, like kind of get a gauge for the situation. Like, okay, what happened to make you want to act this way? Okay, well, when I dealt with a similar situation, this is what I did. Because, I firmly believe in giving people an outline for how to do the work, while also giving them the space to kind of figure it out on their own. Like, think about it kind of like raising a child, you know. You don't want to sit, like, you can't insert Kantoinette into this child, right? But at the end of the day, like, you have to create some sort of structure for them to figure it out on their own, right? So I think that's the biggest thing is, you know, helping, like, giving people the safe space to talk about, you know, whatever it is they would like to discuss, whatever it is they want to work through. And yeah,
going from there without expectation either, because the honest truth is it's going to be on that person's time. So if we're talking about accountability, you cannot sit there and be like, well, I gave you the tools and I told you and I showed you and blah, blah, blah. And then you expect for them to just go off and get it. Like, no, this stuff is accountability, and all the different stuff we've been talking about recently in these weeks. It's their personal journeys that you have to actually undergo. And those things take time. They take space.
Are you frying me right now? Because I literally, it's not me, but how I've treated the situation. I've talked to someone, and, you know, I'm a man of many quotes and discipline and all of this thing, all of that. And, you know, I do, because of who I am, because I learn so fast, I expect people.
You want results.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, I told you, let's go. Like,
that's not how people work.
No.
This is the same thing, like the conversation, like you'll hear a lot of women be like, I'm tired of her coming to me talk about this same guy. But I'm the friend that's like, girl, come to me and talk to me about it as many times as you need to.
Listen, because eventually they're gonna, like, it's like.
And I have friends that do that. Like, a lot of times they'll be like, girl, I'm done. But the time they actually say they're done and they mean it, that's the time that I actually, like, pick up on it. And I'll be like, okay, you are talking differently this time. This is how I know you're serious. You got to give people time to actually, like, believe in the stuff that they're saying or believe in the stuff that you're telling them. Because some people are not, you know, you can be sitting there on your soapbox and be telling them and giving all the wisdom you feel like they need, but that we also have to be careful of feeling like we are in a position to teach others too, because some people will resent that. You know, sometimes it's just being an open and safe space without having an expectation that this person needs that kind of guidance. Yeah. A lot of my guidance came from experiences, not necessarily words somebody else spoke to me. And so being aware of that helps me to interact with others, especially when we're talking about accountability, without the expectation that they should be on the level that I'm on, because their journey is theirs and mine is mine.
Yeah. And, you know,
it's hard though.
Yeah, because I'll be like, man, come on, cuz.
Come on,
right,
like,
here, bro. You got
you don't
the
see
signs
this
right
shit
here. Like, do you see this, fam? Do you like it? Like, I'm not gonna say it pains me, but it's interesting to see how people don't realize how they're the cause of their own problems. Mm-hmm. Like, what they allow, or, you know, what they choose to do for themselves, like habits, things of that nature. But again, if you're like us and so introspective, we're quick to be like, why did I do that? Like,
honest in that introspection. Because some people will be like, oh, I'm doing the work. Are you? Because I don't know, like, the results are a little, you know, damn, I was about to say something, but I missed it. So I'm gonna go on to the next question.
Okay.
What is your earliest experience with accountability as an adult that you can remember?
Earliest.
And I need to think.
So a piece of my story. Okay. I used to live in a house out in Conway. It was literally right behind Coastal. It was a great house. I had a sunroom. It was like my first time on my own. Like, you know, it was those type of vibes. And to be completely honest with you, I squandered it away off of, you know, chasing after desires instead of focusing on responsibility. But the biggest thing is I would like brush it to the side, like, it's cool, it's cool, it's cool. And then it came back to like haunt me. And I was like, dang, I should have did X, Y, Z, but now I'm doing this. And I put myself in this scenario. And, I went through this span of, I think, like a year or so of like just being mad at myself for making bad decisions. But that was pretty much my earliest memory of holding my own self accountable for my actions.
Right.
I felt like I had to, and this was, it was different. Okay. This was actually, I think there's a song I have called Prologue, and I recorded that song during that time. But yeah, this was the earliest memory of figuring out like, all right, what am I doing? Is everything actually in order, or am I just throwing things to the side?
Right. And you gave me my next episode. I'm sorry. Like because you had to become self-aware to even hold yourself accountable. And I think that's the biggest piece. And that's probably also why a lot of people struggle. And I'm just realizing that it's like, if you're not self-aware, how are you going to hold yourself accountable?
Yeah. Because look, yo, I'm a fan of simplifying all of these theories. Like I meet people in the spiritual space or just in general, they got, yo, this thing is connected that with this is that. And I'm like, yo, I don't care about none of that shit. Like, what's this? I get to the root of things. That's just kind of how I am. Like I get to the root of problems. I like to, like dig whenever in. I learn something, I dig in. So, don't let me lose the point. No,
it's okay. I can.
Self-aware. Okay, so I got it. So the name of this life we live in is awareness. It's what are you aware of? The older the more woke or conscious you get, however people want, what I'm saying? It's really just you're increasing your levels of awareness.
Right.
Whether you want to talk about you being intuitive and things of that nature, you're just being more aware of your inner voice that's always been there. Like, and that's kind of what you start to learn as you learn yourself, is like these things are always there, but now you're more aware of it. And you're like, damn.
I love that.
Yeah. So,
and that's also probably really why you can have someone who is aware of your flaws and not necessarily aware of theirs, because they see you more clearly than they see themselves. You are physically in front of them, right? When we think about self, it's all internal, right? And then we have reflections bouncing off of us with the people that we have in our lives. Right. But it's so easy for us to hold someone else accountable and not ourselves, because we are aware of them, but self-awareness is a whole different thing.
Yeah. Like, are you aware of that thing that person is showing you that you have? Or are you just like, nah, that person did. Like,
That's why you have to listen to how people are telling you they're experiencing you. Like, we can't just automatically, oh, this person's a hater. This person got this and that going on. Yes, that don't mean take everything somebody is presenting to you. But if you have a person that you've already built trust with and that you've already built some kind of connection with, it shouldn't be your first response to dismiss what they say they're experiencing when they're connecting with you. Like, that should be, whenever somebody brings something to me, I'm automatically like, oh, let me see if it's some truth here. That's my first thing. Like, let me see if there's some truth here. And then I start thinking back on my own actions, my thoughts, and everything else. But, defense mechanisms kick in with a lot of people, and they protect that ego. And that's because self-awareness isn't in play. Usually self-awareness is that check and balance that kind of keeps that ego at bay.
And when you get to the root of the ego, it like bounces you back up almost. It's kind of like a trampoline. Like, but you have to, ego is pretty much your identity. Like, past your identity, like, who are you? So once you get to who you think you are, or rather your ego is really just what other people perceive you to be.
Or how you try to show yourself to other people. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's that performance, it's that mask, right? I have cultivated this image. I want you to buy into this image. If you see any kind of chinks in this armor of this image,
it's gonna hurt me. Like,
it's behind this image is the vulnerability, is the true self. But this image is what I want you to buy into, because I'm not ready for you to see all the spots and the vulnerability and the softness and the flaws. I'm not ready for you to see all that.
Yeah, so, my what's the word? My transparency scares some people, because I just be like, yo, this is what it is. Like, like, I'll be completely honest with you. I woke up from a nap before we got on here. Like,
me too.
Up.
Shit. The sleeping pill, 3 hours. What
I was like, man, look, because I'm studying some things. I was in a meditative space, and I just ended up taking a nap. You know, it's a certain level of we can't give people all the tea, but there has to be a certain level of transparency we're willing to have, especially in interpersonal relationships. Because this is somebody if this is somebody we care about, like, you got to let them know, like, yo, this is what's going on. This is how I feel. And that's just how I move. Like, I'm going to tell you not everything, but I'm going to make my intention. Yeah. I'm going to be open early, just so you know what's going on. Like, and I know sometimes that can come off as arrogant. He's like, oh, now he thinks he did it, but
no, I just know what I give, and it's okay for me to fully say that, because I actually do the work to be that space and to be what I say I am.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that hit me just now was I think I put a tweet up earlier this week, and I was like, how a lot of people have this idea of how others are supposed to show up for them. But if you're a closed door, how can anything get in? How can anything flow through you if you are closed, but you expect someone to show up and feed into you? But they're on the other side knocking, waiting for you to open it up, you know? And that's the thing about connecting with each other and holding ourselves accountable. Like you said, that openness, that vulnerability, that transparency, the same thing that we're supposed to do in connection with other people, we need to do that with ourselves. Some of us have a hard time even being vulnerable with ourselves.
Oh yeah, because there's a acronym. You going to write? You better write this down.
Oh,
I got it from KRS-One again.
Look, I got a
pen. Blame, because looking at me ain't easy.
Oh, come on now.
Listen, I heard that. I was like, yep, that's all it is. We blame other people because we ain't want to look at ourselves. That simple fact of the matter. Like, no, you. No, you, sir. But that's why you that's why you learn yourself, so you can cross-reference what you're seeing, and then then you address it after you check yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna answer this question because I'm really bad on LVF of asking my guest questions. Answer. Cool. I feel like my earliest memory of accountability was similar to yours. Of course, we got those little moments in childhood, but as far as an adult, for me, it was kind of like I got angry that I wasn't at a certain space in life, and I started blaming those around me. I started blaming my parents, which there were things they needed to be accountable for, but I wasn't taking ownership of any of that myself, and how even though I wasn't given the resources and the mentorship and stuff that I needed, there were different things that I could have done along the way to better prepare myself and to actually put myself in a better space. So sitting there being angry at somebody else because I made certain decisions wasn't fair. And the moment I was able to hold myself accountable right before I was able to do that was that self-awareness. It's like coming into myself and realizing like, no, you had control over some of these situations and you made the wrong decisions. You made the wrong decisions because you didn't know yourself. So that was number one. And then when I was able to sit with that and take ownership of it, I was able to hold myself responsible for the results of those decisions that I made. And then moving forward, I was more conscious and more intentional. And it's a continuous process because that was level 1. I'm at level like 30 right now.
Listen, I'm at level 1005
because when you think you got it,
you don't got it. It's a whole nother. My dad always says knowledge is infinite. So like you're literally, and I think that knowledge brings things together. It's not, you're learning things you already know, but it's like you learn that thing, and then something else comes up, and then something else comes up,
Mm-hmm.
and then something else comes up. And not to mention the trials and tribulations that come in your life so that you master the lessons that you've learned, like the tests and all of that. So that's a whole nother, and you just climbing the ladder, man.
Just keep going.
For real.
So I guess we kind of talked about how our generation deals with accountability. Do you think it's anything specific with our generation when it comes to accountability, or like why we run from it?
The phone doesn't make it easier.
The phone.
it really don't, because the first thing somebody do when they get mad or they're nervous or they have anxiety is they'll like, it's just an impulse. Like it pulls people away from dealing with their shit. Like, honestly.
Call me out. Call me out.
It's cool because we grew up in a technological era, especially when you have a platform. It's definitely, you can come up with your own reasons for being on the phone.
You can give yourself an excuse. I was literally on the couch today and I was feeling anxious, but I didn't realize that I wasn't being my self-aware self. Right. I was just being a person on the couch with my phone in my hand, and I kept putting my phone down, and then I would have that feeling of anxiety, and then I would pick my phone up. And after about the 5th time of doing that, I was just like, what's going on right now? Why are you anxious?
Why do I keep picking up? I ain't getting no notifications. Anybody calling me?
The last time you looked at the phone 2 seconds ago, you had no notifications. You had already answered your text messages. You had already answered your emails. What's going on? I realized I was anxious for things that were going to happen. I didn't feel like, I was like, okay, I got to record tonight. Got to make sure that I pay this bill. I got to prepare myself for the school week. I got to make sure I do all this stuff. And I feel like I'm not being productive because I'm just sitting here on the couch. So I distract myself with my phone. And so I was just like, well, what?
Productivity.
So then I was like, well, what would happen if you just get up and see what you have to do for the week for school, and you go ahead and you write this episode, because I hadn't wrote the episode yet. That's what I was doing. I was like, you go ahead and write this episode, and then you send that, and then we can go on with this. And you're tired, which is why you're not being productive. So let's take a nap. Just being aware of what I needed and giving myself that. But you're so right. Whenever I felt like, I was like, why do I keep my phone in my hand? I was like, I need to be doing something else with my hands, something productive that's going to help my anxiety in those moments. And I thought about getting those little round things that you can like kind of stitch. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna go to Hobby Lobby and get a few of those so that when I'm on the couch, I'm not on my phone. I'm actually able to engage, because I'm the person that's on my phone and I'll have the TV on because I like the background noise. It's weird.
No, it's the comfort of having something there so that you're not alone.
Yeah.
Type beat. And then, of course, you being on your phone, you're able to connect with the world. And it's always a double-edged sword. Like, it's great that we can connect with the world and express ourselves and create opportunities for ourselves. But sometimes we got to, like, look up and see the rest of our life in front of us.
Yeah.
So we got to remember that it's a tool. Like, if you think about it, every single thing that's on our phone came from a human being.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, if it came from a human, why not? I'm not trying to be philosophical, but
that's all we are on LBF. I mean, sometimes we get a little crazy, but usually I love that people say that this podcast makes them think, because
oh nah, you be dropping the tea, okay? I be like, yeah, talk about it.
But this is like, I'm just presenting conversations to everyone else that I have with myself. And I've always just said that, like, these are my thoughts, and I'm just inviting you in to have the conversation with me so I can hear yours. And I don't know, philosophical works.
Hey, listen, I'm a lifelong supporter. Okay.
So we're going to touch on discernment again. And discernment is the ability to judge well. And then it says in context to like spirituality and Christian context, perception is the absence of judgment with a view to obtaining spiritual guidance and understanding. And I think I love that definition more. Your favorite word, perception. Yes.
that is the whole goal, is to get an unobstructed view at your life or other people's lives in general. Like, when all these walls of what you think separates us are not there, what is actually there? Like,
right.
that's why I asked, I got it on my business card. Do you have a clear perception of reality? Like, are you looking at things unobstructed, or are you only looking through your lens? And yeah, at a certain point, you do realize that you can really only see it through your lens. So it's kind of like you have to learn to understand other people's viewpoints rather than trying to like assimilate or you don't want to take a holier than thou stance, right? So it's just just understanding how someone else views it, putting yourself in other people's shoes.
Learning empathy.
Yes.
You have to with any of this, it's like I can hold you accountable and I can still be empathetic to understand why you did what you did or why you behaved the way you behaved.
I don't have to tolerate it.
I don't have to tolerate it. And that's the difference. It's like, okay, we 30 and you still talking about what you went through when you was a kid. Like, we all got a past. We all got trauma. I promise you that. Like, you're not going to find no person on this earth that ain't been through it, and it might look different than yours, but that's not for you to say how that impacted that person's growth. The important thing is, what are you doing about it? And when it comes to discerning things, I can hold you accountable and I can still value you as a person, but make the decision that I'm not going to sit here and take it. How do you feel like discernment plays a part when we're talking about accountability?
It's discernment, and I had to learn this, I think, about a year ago. Discernment is a tool that's cultivated. So you can't just, it's kind of like sharpening your mental sword in a sense. In order to know, you have to have been through it. You can hear somebody talk about it. You can, you know what I'm saying? You can listen to the old, but until you kind of have the experience yourself or listen to a vivid enough experience yourself or see the effects of the experience, you can never really tell the difference in a sense. So it's that aspect of, you really got to when it comes to accountability, I feel like you have to know when it's someone else's problem and not yours.
Right.
That's the biggest part.
Which we kind of touched on in the beginning too. When you are still working on your self-worth, your self-esteem and stuff, it's really easy to buy into everything is yours to fix, right? The fixers. It's easy to buy into, oh, it's a problem with me. And then you don't look and see the truth in everybody else because you're already being overly critical on yourself because you don't feel good about self. Right. Discernment is one of those things that I have had to work on a lot. A lot, right? So who am I allowing in my space? Like, am I a good picker of people who are going to be interacting with me, who are going to be building a life with me or friendship or whatever? Am I a good discerning person when it comes to any decision? Do I trust myself? I feel like that plays a part too. And we kind of touched on that on the live last night with a micro speak. Like, do I trust myself enough to be good at discernment? Right. I feel like I'm at 65, 75%, I still need some work on the discernment piece.
I'm like 80, 85. I ain't 100% there. It's definitely it, because as you get better with discernment, you realize the nuance. Mm-hmm. Because you have to take into account other people are doing their self-work. You have to take into account what you've been through and how you're referencing things. You have to think about, okay, where were we in this particular scenario? And you got to look at the whole, many levels to it.
Yeah.
And this is why, it's a tool that has to be sharpened, throughout time. And no one is ever going to have, quote unquote, perfect discernment. But it's definitely it just comes back to self at the end of the day. But you know,
it's a necessary tool and skill.
Yeah.
You know, you hear in the Bible they talk about discernment, but it's one of those things where I want to be able to be a good judge of people, including myself. And I want to be able to be honest, not judging like I'm gonna judge you, but when you're presenting something to me, I'm able to not only see what you're presenting, I want to be able to actually see behind that, because behind that is what I'm really going to be interacting with, not this performance, you know, that's only going to last but so long. I want to be able to get better. And I feel like I'm already good at it because I feel like I'm insightful. However, because I got my own stuff, sometimes that discernment be a little tricky.
Yeah.
It'd be a little tricky, you know, so just getting better at choosing and building the life that I want and doing that with discernment, because that's what it is. Like, discernment helps you build up the things around you, from the decisions you make to the people you invite into your spaces.
Discernment comes with, it just hit me. Discernment comes with boundaries. And and it just hit me again. You never really, you don't really get better or worse, quote unquote. You really just get like a system of determining pretty much how is this person better for me. So for example, you know, if I meet somebody and I smell liquor and they're slurring, I'm like, okay, this person may not be in the right mind state. Why is that? And then kind of, should I be around this person? Where are we? Like, you know what I'm saying? So,
well, dang, if you was around me last night, I had liquor in my system. I was slurring.
Oh, you was having a good time. Okay. That is okay. More power to you. What's in that LBF cup?
Oh, this water today. That's from last night. I had to have water in my cup today. But the Jameson and the rest of the stuff is over on the side.
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
All right. So what are some methods that you can say in holding ourselves accountable for this conversation? What are some methods you've used to escape accountability?
Escape? Oh gosh. Let's see. Always, you know, placing the blame on another person or just placing blame externally. What other ways? Ignoring the problem, of course.
Avoidance. Ooh, that's my go-to right there.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's really like, even when you get to the root of like anything else I could say, it's either avoidance or, you know, you're putting it externally. Like, oh, you did it because your wounds, or, you know, because that person didn't put their blinker on, my brake stopped. Like, it's usually some form of those two things.
Right.
For me, it's usually the avoidance, because I'm like, I'll worry about it later. Like, I'm always like, I'll worry about it later. But, you know, problems do have to be like, things cease to hold power over you when you face them.
Yeah.
Like, so
I agree. Definitely shifting the blame, deflecting, and then avoidance was a big one. Like, I'm not even going to deal with the issues.
Deflecting. Oh, you said
deflecting. Like, I'm not even going to deal with the situation. Like, you know, whatever it is, that, I mean, that's a piece of avoidance too. But deflecting is somebody's actually presenting something to you and you just deciding you're still not going to deal with it. Like, you're just going to change the subject. You're just going to be like, all right, well, I hear you.
Yeah.
I think what I have to be careful about now in my in my age now is still blaming others under the guise of accountability. So it's now.
Yeah, you got to talk on this, because that hit for me just now. You got to,
So for us conscious people, because I have to talk to us, like, because sometimes this is what got me when I said that quiet voice was like, well, it ain't just them. The reason why that voice can tell me that was because I was rightfully holding other people accountable, but I was holding them accountable for too much. So I was blaming them for the whole totality of whatever the situation was, right? Under the guise of accountability. And it was conflated with blame. I was still avoiding and escaping the accountability that I needed to assume because it was easier than, nobody wants to feel like they're responsible for their discomfort, their hurt, their pain, or whatever. So I was still blaming another or other people under the guise of accountability.
Yeah.
And so we have to be careful with that.
Yeah, there is definitely, again, it's always about a balance. That's why, when we started the conversation, I said, I check myself first. I'm like, okay, I see what's going on. How do I feel? What's going on with them? How does this, what about me is being shown in this scenario? Okay, what, you know what I mean? Having those steps so you can kind of like, all right, we kind of like,